Hey moviegoers, this is the Movie Critic and welcome back to another movie review. Today the movie I'm going to be reviewing is the newest kaiju monster film from Toho Studios titled
Godzilla Minus One.
Before we get into the video, make sure to smack that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell on the side to get information on videos in the near future. Now that I got that out of the way, let's get into the review for Godzilla Minus One. And action! After the devastating events of World War II, Japan begins to pick up after the rubble in hopes of a brighter future. When things start to look up, a new crisis emerges in the form of a giant dinosaur monster with nuclear-level powers. Starting off with the things that I liked. The first thing that I liked about this film was its story. So for those who aren't familiar with this film's plot, let me break it down for you guys. The film's main protagonist is a Japanese kamikaze pilot during World War II named Koichi. During his mission, he lies about having mechanical issues with his plane and makes his way to a military base at Odo Island, abandoning his duty as a kamikaze pilot to, well, die. That night, Godzilla shows up on the base and begins to wreak havoc while Koichi watches in fear. All the mechanics die except for one, and his name is Tachibana. The film then continues touching on Koichi's life after the war in Tokyo, where he meets Noriko, a woman who takes care of a child who is not hers, and together they form a found family. During this time, Godzilla becomes a mutant monster due to a nuclear test. 2 years later, Koichi has a job removing mines on a wooden boat with 3 other people named Kenji, Shiro, and Yoji. One day, a newly mutated Godzilla arises and causes chaos with his newfound powers, beginning his rampage on Japan. What will the country do? What will Koichi do? The average Godzilla stuff, you know? There are some elements of the story that seem simple to some, but I feel these simple elements are executed well, and it is all thanks to the wonderful actors on screen. Which leads me into the second thing that I liked about this film, which was the acting. Literally everyone in this film did an amazing job in their respective roles. Never in my life did I think I would watch a Godzilla film and say that I enjoyed the human plotline just as much as the Godzilla scenes. But here we are. While the humans do take up majority of the screen time, the actors are just so talented, and they all take part in extremely captivating scenes. There is a monologue in this film that is said by Kamiki Ryunosuke, who plays Koichi, and the amount of emotion he puts into the scene made me forget that I was watching a movie that happened to have a giant dinosaur in it every now and then. The characters in this film were burdened with the aftermath of World War II, and you really wanted to see them pursue a happy life as the film went along, which was honestly great because that meant that I wanted the actors to survive the wrath of our gargantuan monster pal. Which leads me into the third thing that I liked about this film, which was Godzilla himself. When I say that bro was an absolute menace throughout this film, bro was going ham whenever he showed up on screen. All I can describe Godzilla as is him. Bro was going sicko mode this entire film. This man was killing civilians left and right. And the funny thing is, all he had to do was step on them for the most part. Man didn't need to do anything else. He just had to walk. Bro really pulled a Denzel Washington because
King Kong ain't got shit on me.
my bad, y'all. I got a little carried away. In most depictions of Godzilla that I have seen, the creature is always painted as the anti-hero who dukes it out with other mutant creatures such as Mechagodzilla and, of course, King Kong himself. I've always heard about Godzilla's feud with Japan in other Japanese films, and even in newer movies like Shin Godzilla, for example, but I never experienced firsthand how malicious this original iteration of Godzilla is, as the creature is an allegory for the atomic bombs that were dropped on Japanese soil after the war. Godzilla in this film is a reminder to the people of Japan of the war that they just got done living through, and his signature move, the atomic breath, is a visual example of the war's impact on Japan's environment. While these things are sad on paper, seeing this creature and his powers on the big screen, man, it was beautiful. And it is all thanks to the wonderful use of CGI and special effects. Which leads me into the fourth thing that I liked about this film, which was the special effects. Godzilla looked amazing. His atomic breath power is mesmerizing to watch, and the scenery of Japan is great as well. Taking all of this into account, you would think that this Godzilla film had a budget of at least $100 million, right?
Wrong!
This film's budget, according to most sources, was $15 million. But according to the director himself, Takashi Yamazaki, he wishes it was that amount. It's insanely bizarre how this film looks so much better than some of the high-budget films that came out this year. This film is proof that you don't need a high budget to make a grand-scale film. What you need is a room of people who know how to use the budget well. The visual effects artists, supervisors, and digital composers came together and made sure that they created a version of Godzilla that was both refreshing yet familiar to fans of the very first film. It's honestly impressive that this film looks as great as it does, and I hope this film can be seen as a lesson for Hollywood in the future. Going into the last thing that I liked about this film, was its use of sound. The sound in this film is phenomenal. The explosions that take place in this film honestly shook up the entire theater. It feels like I'm there with the characters. One of my favorite scenes in the film is when Godzilla charges up his atomic breath and unleashes it on Japan. While the scene itself looks great, hearing the atomic breath charge up, release from Godzilla's mouth, and eventually cause a nuclear bomb-level explosion is what sends chills down my spine. What I also love about the sound in this film is the amount of silence that takes place throughout. The quiet moments in these films really do add on to the emotional weight of these characters and the situation at hand. But I won't discredit the film's score composed by Naoki Sato because that is also amazing. The sound on all fronts made for an exceptional experience in the theater, but I do wish I could have experienced it in a better format. Going into the things I didn't like. Now, this isn't a jab at the movie whatsoever. Not at all. The movie is basically flawless, but to my local theater, why weren't there any IMAX screenings for this masterpiece? Look, I know I saw the film 2 weeks after its initial release, but dang Amstar, did you guys just not have an IMAX format copy of the film? I was able to see The Boy and the Heron in IMAX, and that was a beautiful experience. Some can make the argument that there isn't a difference seeing the film in standard or IMAX, but I don't know, I can tell the difference. Either way, it was still beautiful to see, and I'm glad to have watched it in theaters after all of the positive reviews this movie gained. Going into the things that I noticed, the one thing that I noticed about this film was its recognition. When I first saw the trailer for this film, I was taken aback by how terrifying yet awesome Godzilla seemed. I always heard great things about the Japanese Godzilla films, so I was intrigued by this film's announcement. As time passed and the film released worldwide, every film reviewer on YouTube and news outlet basically said the same thing, that this film was one of the best to come out this year. On Rotten Tomatoes, the tomato meter for this film was 98%. with the audience score also being 98%, making it one of the highest rated films this year on that website. It's rare that both sides of the website collectively agree on a positive scale about a film, and it's honestly for good reason. While there are diehard fans of Godzilla who went into this film expecting greatness, there are average moviegoers who went into the film expecting another turn-your-brain-off kaiju film due to the Hollywood Godzilla movies that released during the 6-year wait for another Japanese Godzilla film. This film allowed people to realize that Godzilla films are more than just popcorn flicks, and that Hollywood needs to finally wake up. Godzilla Minus One is another case of international films setting an example of why we go to the theaters instead of waiting for films to release on a streaming service. With a simple yet compelling story, phenomenal acting from all of these amazing Japanese actors, extremely impressive special effects with a $15 million budget, great use of sound, and a terrifyingly beautiful interpretation of Godzilla, the film offers a lot to its audience who ranges from being a fan of Godzilla to someone who is just a general moviegoer. The way it deals with themes of survivor's guilt and the aftermath of a war makes you feel like you're not watching a Godzilla film at times. And I mean that in the best way possible, I swear. But as soon as the monster appears, he only highlights the themes even more, and it is extraordinary. The love this film has received in the past month is completely justified, as it truly is a celebration of cinema itself in my eyes. It has action, horror, breathtaking visuals, emotional, somber, and comedic acting performances, bone-chilling sound mixing, and lastly, a beautiful score. Some, if not all, of these elements factor into creating a once-in-a-lifetime cinematic experience. 2023 as a year, you know what? I'm going to save that for another video. But all in all, this movie is without a shadow of a doubt one of the best films to release this year, and if you're able to watch it in theaters, do it while you still can. And yes, especially in IMAX. It might change your life. On the metal status ranking, I give Godzilla Minus One a platinum status. And that's going to be it for this review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I had a ton of fun recording it. It was fun writing it. It was fun watching the movie. Yeah, I'm really glad that I got this out. Yeah, my top 10 best films of the year comes out, and I am so excited to get into that review. I cannot wait to make that because it's one of my favorite things to do. I'm so glad that I do it. And yeah, I hope you guys like the list I come up with eventually. One thing that I forgot to mention in my Five Nights at Freddy's video is that I have a letterbox and an Instagram. So if you're new to the channel or if you're subscribed and you just didn't do it for some reason, make sure to check it out. They're in the description. The links are in the description. So feel free to check them out. Yeah. Hopefully you guys do. But yeah, I think that's it. Have a great day or night wherever you are, moviegoers. This is the Movie Critic, and that's a wrap.